last 3 weeks. We've been doing a talk on Handbook to Higher Consciousness. This is part 3.7, really part 4, because I split it up a few ways. This is a book written by Ken Keyes Jr. and Penny Keyes, and we've been covering a lot of material. And there's so much more material to go on in this book. So I really invite everyone to look at the last few talks, if you haven't been here, so you can catch up with it. And I invite you to check out this book. I'm going to be talking at the end of the talk about a class that I would like to start on Handbook to Higher Consciousness. Not quite sure how I'm going to choreograph it, but there'll be a sign-up sheet next week. But we're going to go right into that. Cool. Today we said we had a meditation this morning about your imagination and all the wonderful things that can happen. And look, wow, okay. So if I can go right to the very next page. So we're going to just get started today. Now, remember in this that the whole premise of this Living Love series is to love and conditioning while I'm releasing emotion-backed addictions that create your programming and to shift them into preferences in our lives. This is about experiencing life from a here and now place and raising our own consciousness. First, by being aware of what center of consciousness you're even experiencing in the moment. Now, he gives 5 methods for working on yourself. Method 1 is to memorize the pathways, use them to guide you through your daily life situation. We're going to be going over all these methods, that's why I'm reading so fast. Method 2, be aware of all times which center of consciousness you are experiencing. Number 3, link the suffering with the addiction to get to the intellectual and emotional insight that is your addictive demand that is causing your suffering. And again, we'll go through these slower. Use the catalyst, all ways, us living love, as a tool for cognitive centering. And method 5 is conscious focusing. So, if I may have the next page, please. These are the 12 pathways. We've gone over these a few times. The very first one is memorize them. This is method 1, to memorize these pathways, to get them in your head as much as you can. Whenever you're feeling worried and angry, jealous, fearful, anxious, any of the uncomfortable emotions, life's given us a message. It's given us a message that we're in an emotion-backed addiction in the moment. And these pathways are a guide to help us release these. Now, a long time ago, I did this book, and it planted a lot of wonderful seeds in me, and of course, all the wonderful things that happened to us along the way plant more seeds. But when I did this 20 years ago, I memorized them in the moment, but I didn't take it with me. Do you know what I mean by take it with me? I am inviting us all to take this with us. I have shifted my perspective of how I'm using this book for me. I've got this on my fridge, and one of the things that they suggest is to say this morning and night. When you wake up in the morning, sidebar for a second. One of the things about creating our own reality, that we have this wonderful buffer zone, that the moment we go to sleep at night, all of our attraction stops. Meaning we stop creating. What's on its way is still on its way. But we have that buffer zone to start afresh in the morning. Now, if I am meditating right before I go to bed, until that nanosecond that I fall to slumber, I am consciously creating, or I'm creating consciously or by default. So if you say these kind of things, or whatever other mantras that work for you, when you first arise, the moment you just became conscious again, and the very first thought that you think is a positive thought or a positive scenario that you're reprogramming your mind, you've already started that day off with positive momentum. And if you go to bed at night and have this or similar things, but for these purposes we're talking about the pathways, let it be the last thing that you consciously focus on. Understand that the last thing you did before you slumbered was send positive energy for your own positive creation to come back at you. This is a real important factor of any kind of mantra or any kind of affirmation or any kind of reprogramming, because there's all different kinds of words for it, that we can do for ourselves. So again, the very first method for this is to memorize these. As we memorize these pathways, they're going to help us be aware when we're in an emotion-backed addiction. It's real easy to say I'm in an addiction if there's a cigarette in my hand, or if there's coffee in my hand and I'm doing it all day long. Those are ones that are real easy to see. These pathways are designed to help us be aware of the ones we've had our blinders on to our whole lives, the ones that we've been reacting to instead of consciously acting in our lives. May I have the next page, please? Method 2. Be aware at all times which of the 7 centers of consciousness you are experiencing. These are the 7 centers of consciousness. We reviewed these as well. And again, for anyone who has missed any of these talks or missed any of the papers or anything, my email is out there. All you have to do is email me and I can send you copies of these pages. I can send you copies of the whole presentation that Tony's been putting up on the wall for us. So that's an email away so that you can get these into your head as well. Because as you do these in the morning and at night, you're going to be aware of what center of consciousness you're in. Each center generates more energy. It lets us relate to more people than the previous center. If I was stuck in the very first center, I'm only going to be around so many people because all I'm going to be worried about is getting enough to secure myself, getting enough to survive. So I'm probably not going to want to visit with too many folks. I'm probably not going to be out there in the world as much if I'm stuck in those centers. As I raise my own consciousness into each one of these centers, what happens for me is I get more energy. Each center opens a door to increase enrichment of our own lives. So yes, it's work. It's always work. Anything we have to do in our life is work. But sometimes at the end of the day when we work, we're dog tired. What this is suggesting is the more you work on this, the more energized you will be. That you may think, God, this is really sucking the life out of me. This is really hard and tiring. And I'm never going to allude to you that any of this inner emotional work, inner mental work is easy. If you wanted an easy life, well, you would have picked one, but you didn't. You came here instead. The thing is what it is. Next week we'll talk about that a little bit more and the journeys of our souls. But we all came here for a reason. We all have raised our own consciousness to that ignorance is bliss sentence. There's no more ignorance when you already know a truth. When the truth is revealed, when an apocalypse happens, when that seal is broken, and the truth is before you, it's hard to go, oh, well, I don't want to look at that anymore. Even though we do it all the time, that's what this center is about, being aware of what consciousness center I'm in all the time. Your awareness of which center you're in, experience, and the use of the pathways is a living, love way to meditate, instead of being a ritual you do in the morning or at night or on a full moon. Your whole life can become a meditation, and that's what this is suggesting. It's suggesting that as we witness these centers of consciousness that we're in, be it the security center or the cosmic consciousness, I hit nirvana, or I'm just down in the ditches right now hoping for a bone that somebody will throw me. Anything, it doesn't, there's no right or wrong in any of these consciousness centers. It says, be aware. Well, it doesn't say it up there, but it did a minute ago. Be aware at all times of which center of consciousness you're experiencing. It doesn't say flog yourself when you're in the wrong center. It doesn't even say that there's a wrong center. It doesn't say that if you hit the cornucopia center one day and then you find yourself back in the security center because you got worried about a bill or something, it never said that you failed. There's nothing in here that has this marked as a goal or a tit for tat or a check mark. It's about experiencing the freedom of this. Every time I am stuck in an addiction, it is less about an addiction, it is more about being in prison. I was watching Bill Maher Friday night, and I never expected something on Bill Maher to be able to tie into a talk. But there was a guy, and I wish I would remember his name, but him and other scientists wrote a book about addictions. They've been doing a lot of study about addictions. And of course, Bill Maher was making jokes about, oh, so we can all just do heroin now? Because what they're proving is that it's not the chemical addiction we're addicted to, it's the prison. And here's the study they did. They gave a rat a bottle of water and a bottle of cocaine water in a cage with nothing else. And it went for the cocaine water every single time. Became a complete cocaine addict on the water. Now, when they went to Ratville, what they call the perfect place for rats, everything, there was rat farm or rat land where every single thing, food, plenty of other rats for him to play with and have sex with. And there was plenty of food, and there was plenty of toys. And in Ratville, there was everything a rat could live for. And they had a bottle of water and a bottle of cocaine water, and they never went for the cocaine water. Because what they're finding is that our addictions are a product of us being in prison and the isolation. That the whole way that Portugal has shifted how they're treating addicts is that they've decriminalized all the drugs and they put all that money into helping people realize what their addictions were in the first place. And what they found is that when we send people that are already feeling isolated, which is why they're going into addictions, and then we isolate them even more, they're not really addicted to the drugs, and you still have a chemical dependency that might have to be released. But when people came back from Vietnam and were doing heroin they didn't keep doing heroin. Not all of them kept it because they found that freedom. Ram Dass says this, I've used this example a lot, that of all the times he wanted to be high, that he realized what he wanted was free. So that's what this is about, is to be aware what center of consciousness you're in so that you can tap into this and free yourself. Freeing myself from my addictions is just freeing myself. I mean, breathing into the words of my own prison that I've created, even if it's an addiction of thought. Matter of fact, they all are addictions of thoughts. As we look at these different centers, and we look at the power center, the security center, and the sensation center, we realize that this is the place where we get caught up the most, because once we transcend into that living love center, we're going to start to breathe a little easier and start to see each other as those awakening beings. So if you show up a little bit differently than I preferred, I've got the ability now to act with you and share with you how I'm feeling or what I would prefer, or I have the ability to back up for a moment and let you be in your stuff, realizing and owning and honoring that you're an awakening being as well. But this counterattack, engaging back and forth between our power centers, that stuff can stop, and we can just breathe into these moments. May I have the next page, please? Method 3, link the suffering with the addiction to get the intellectual and emotional insight that is your addictive demand that is causing your suffering. So just breathe into that for a minute. Link the suffering with the addiction to get to the intellectual and emotional demand that is emotional insight that is your addictive demand that is causing your suffering. So the key to this method is to consciously connect all the suffering in your life with the addictive, emotion-backed models that you keep telling yourself you have to be happy. Security center is a real easy one for us to realize this dialogue. It's like, well, I have to have my bills paid to be happy, or I have to have enough food to be happy. That's one for our mind. But what about the ones of like, well, she has to like my shirt for me to be happy? I have to have 10 compliments a day and 0 criticism. I mean, we set up a lot of rules in our body about how other people have to show up. And when they don't show up that way, well, we're unacceptable. So we're going to just tell them what's for, aren't we? And shit on them and tell them how they ought to be and tell them what they need to do to support me and how I want to be. Or I can just quit worrying about what they make up in their head about me and just go on with the flow of my show. Living love, this is about unconditional love, but I gotta tap into my own experiences and find out, well, what is the addiction that I'm here? What is my mind telling me? This is the place of explore the suffering, pinpoint the addictive demand, reprogram the addictive demand, and then experience the freedom. When I take full responsibility, and when we take full responsibility for everything going on, we're giving our ego and our rational mind an entirely different direction to go. We're letting them operate differently. They begin to work in helping us reprogram instead of egging you on to manipulate the situation, which is mostly what happens. Oh yeah, they didn't show up right. This is what you need to do. You need to tell them right now that they're going to do it your way, or you're never going to love them again. And it's that tit for tat that we play with each other. And what this method is saying to us is, be aware of your addictive programming. Be aware of what comes on in your rational mind when you start doing this. And by taking the full responsibility for it, you're giving your own ego and mind a different job. It's like I always make the jokes about all these inner selves, and what I did with the paranoid part of me, as much as I can, is let them watch the door. Because you think someone's always going to come in and infiltrate something anyway. So it's like, we're not in the jungle. I'm not in a fight or flight. I don't live in Manhattan anymore, or Brooklyn, or the Bronx, really, where it would be a jungle. So I don't have to really engage this fight or flight mechanism within me. And that's what that paranoid part of us. It's very security-centered consciousness. It's there all the time to tell us, we're going to die! It's okay. And yes, we will. but later. So go watch the door, and you'll be good. Now, as I move forward in my life, I realize, I have him watching the door by himself. I'm like, I've done it, son. It's another way of isolating a self within us. So send a couple friends. All the crazy people can hang out. Yeah, y'all can watch the door together. And if people come in, they're going to see how crazy you are, and they're not going to want to come, so it's okay. We're just going to breathe into it sometimes and allow the selves within us. Again, everything here is about discovery. This is all about being aware of which center we're in, being aware of where my mind is going, and how that I can actually give that wonderful, rational thinking mind something else to do for me. Because most of the time, it's serving me. It's like I said last week when I did the math about cigarettes, that with all the years I've smoked, 33 years, at 2 packs a day, that was like standing there smoking a cigarette for over 2 years of my life. That's nothing. That's nothing, because I did a lot of stuff while I was smoking. I've worked on cars and put this here and had smoke in my eye. I have done a lot while smoking. But how much have you stood in your addictions in your life, just stood there, thinking whatever you were thinking about life, about the people in your life, about the stuff that you're making up about them, because you don't know, it's their life. What do you really know of each other except what we share with each other? So we stop making stuff up, we pinpoint, we explore it, we pinpoint the addictive demand. And this is the place where all these what questions happen. What am I feeling? What is my mind thinking to prove everybody else wrong? What is my posture? What is my expression? This is that place to just simply ask yourself and discover. Once you've pinpointed the addiction, the next step is to reprogram it. If I may have the next slide, please, or frame. So in method 4, they say to use this catalyst, always us living love, as a tool for cognitive centering. So we can call it, they call it reprogramming. Many of us have used the words affirmations. Now, in their suggestion, you see how this is broken up here? Their suggestion is to take this sentence and to emphasize each word on purpose. So there's the sentence, always us living love. And then there's always us living love. Always us living love. And to just meditate with this. Always us living love. Always us living love. And then always us living love. Do you guys understand that? Because there's every word has a vibration. Every single word in the universe has a vibration. And it's like in that sailor in me that can, be very colorful with words sometimes, doesn't mind when it's playful, because I know the vibration of the word is different. But when you use a word that's hostile, I don't care if it's deemed profane in the Webster's dictionary or not. It could be bubblegum. But if that word comes out of you with vibration of hostility, then it's rippling. So understand that the English language and all the languages do have a certain vibration. And if I can clear my own language up itself, then I could positively enforce the essence of who I am. Sometimes people will come up with their own little sentence, like they did, to help to use as a catalyst for us. But we all do all kinds of affirmations. What we're talking about here is be aware of what your affirmations are, because most of the affirmations are that we tell ourselves is nothing's going to work. I'm never going to make it. Fill in the blank. Always us living love. And one of the things that he said to do, they, again, because I want to give credit to both, is as you look at every person in the eyes, as soon as you meet someone, to have this be a mental trigger that happens first. So that when you come upon a new person, you just automatically think, always us living love. Always, not always, always, in all ways for me to possibly love you. There's so many different ways for me to do that. Sometimes I have to allow you to tell me how that is. Because what the hell do I know? It's like you may want to be loved this way, and if I'm going to love you that way, well, I'm not really loving you. I'm loving me, the way I want to be loved. Maybe sometimes it's time to hear and have the always of living love, and to be open enough to listen to the person that wants the love and love them like they want it. There's plenty of people around, they're going to like the way I love and they'll like the way I like to be loved. So if I really get addicted to that, to love showing up a certain way. There's plenty of people who can do that for me. But while I'm on the path, if I can use this, it's going to teach me so many different ways to live love. Because as many people as there are on our planet, there's that many different ways to love. Because we all have our fingerprint, we all have our voice print, we all know ourselves and our identity, but no other person has ever been you before, so they don't know how to tell you to show up. They don't know how to tell you to feel, especially love. Now there's that lessons here with the, if you love me, that's lessons of unconditional love. But when we use this as a catalyst for every time we look in a person's eyes, and just think this simple phrase, always us live in love, it shifts us into that fourth center of consciousness, which is the love center. And when we shift in that consciousness center, man, it is energizing, and you feel like a ton of bricks falls off of you. And it can happen from a nanosecond to a nanosecond. So you'll feel light, and then you'll feel heavy. You feel light, you're like, oh God, I got a workout, and I wasn't even doing anything. And it is a workout sometimes. Always us living love includes you. Look in your own eyes and say this. To be the first one that you say that to. But to always have that magic within you when you see another human, to have this phrase. You can sing it. You can be playful with it. There's so many different, Russia has done this in schooling to teach people. We know that music gets in. So if you're having fun with something, it's going to make an emotional condition that's going to happen within you and your body. It's going to shift the energy within your body. And I'm backtracking, you don't have to backtrack on the thing, but even with that last segment of pinpointing the addiction and all that, one of the things in that process is if you're stuck in a mental flusteredness, stop, halt. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired, stop, just breathe. But if you got plugged in emotionally to something, that is the time to reprogram. That's a little bit of how our workshops work. It's like you'll have an intense moment to reprogram something, but if somebody's stuck in their head, not the right time. The mind is still a wonderful thing. We still want our mind to help us think things and process things, but when we're mentally flustered or mentally discombobulated, there's nothing for that mind to do except be stuck in its addiction. If I'm emotionally plugged in and have that clarity of thought of, I want this, I want free from this, I'm going to do something that helps me be free, and I give that brain something to do. So there's a big difference between being mentally flustered and emotionally flustered when you're reprogramming and helping yourself with these different things. This is a mantra that will help you jump right back into your heart center, so that if that stuff does come up, you can breathe for a minute and then act with the next person instead of react. If I may have the next page, please. Method 5 is consciousness focusing. Consciousness focusing is based on the fact that your emotional program is established by whatever you tell yourself with strong feelings when you're in pain or suffering. Actually, I got ahead of myself a little bit. So here's a light socket lesson. So all of us were little kids, and you may have stuck your finger in a light socket when you were a kid and got zapped. I bet you didn't do that again. In that moment, there was a serious conscious programming that happened in your body that gave you a directive that if you do that, you're going to experience all this pain. Now, sometimes as we're doing that, that is a way for us to realize and to pinpoint that suffering and to explore that addiction, because that one is a program that will keep you alive. And when that happens, those kind of programs, that's part of where the fear mechanism was set up in our body on purpose to keep us alive. But what about the other times, like you were just about to do it and then you get screamed at? And we're going to talk about that in a little bit too. That immediately put a programming into you that if I go near that, I'm going to get hurt. And it put a fear of the electricity with a socket as opposed to just knowing the facts. How the times we program ourselves, a lot of the times we program ourselves, is with fear. And a lot of what this is saying is to, as you're consciously focusing and you're pinpointing these addictions and you know what your rational mind is thinking and you know what your triggers are, now I can focus on what I want. I can consciously focus, which is why I got the eye with the spyglass, or whatever you want to call it, magnifying glass, to give us that hyper focus, because it's so easy for us to get distracted. Very easy for me to get distracted. I know my mind, And I know its brilliance, and I know its wonders, and I know its woes. I know where it falls in the gutter, I know where it hits a brick wall. So this is about also being aware, meaning these methods build upon each other, knowing what you're doing, knowing where you're at, and being in the now, and releasing the need to have to make the grade all the time. It's like, there's a couple lines in this book where he's saying, and as you do this, in a couple of years, you'll be able to achieve the next level. And I could see people going, a couple of years? I don't have that much time. It's like, it's an experience, it's not a goal. It's not a like, well, before I die, I must hit number 7. Oh, you didn't hit number 7, you're going back. It's not as much as that as how much time did I get to experience these things? How much time can I take and be mindful of where I'm at and still operate from here with you? This is a challenge in our lives. It's like, if I have a lot of stuff going on in here, life telling me things that I'm making up in my head, because it's all here for me. If I remember the cornucopia center, I know that everything that could possibly be provided for me has been provided. And when I get stuck into that insecurity center, it's harder to be present with people. So that's where these things of focusing helps us, because if I give my mind something to do on purpose, it's going to do what I ask it. So if I consciously focus on what I want as I'm using these different 5 methods, still using all the pathways, still using all the 7 centers of consciousness, and all the other wonderful stuff that's in this book that I invite you to explore, I'm going to start hearing the dialogue in my own mind to be different. I'm going to start, those affirmations are going to be real in my body. They're going to start being focal points that come naturally. These 12 pathways, which aren't on the wall anymore, but one of the reasons that they're talking about memorizing them is because when they become an intuitive part of our body, then we're not having to regurgitate them, they're just there. And I used this example a long time ago, when Margie and I first started doing workshops and stuff. We had a Wednesday night group, and we used to do affirmations. And one of them was, I believe in myself. And I cracked up laughing the first time I read it, because I didn't do affirmations. It was so foreign. It was like, it reminded me of that Saturday Night Live skit where, like, God doggone it, people love me. It just plugged me in. And one of them was, I love myself. I love myself, or so I thought. But the job was to go look in the mirror and say you love yourself. So I consciously did that. I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. I didn't believe it, but I started to. Until that one moment while walking by a mirror one day in the hallway, caught it peripherally, and I looked over and saw myself, and that very first instant feeling was, I love myself. I'm like, wow, I didn't think that. I didn't consciously think that. It happened. I had reprogrammed enough of the hate and morose feelings I had for me and shifted it to love, because, well, everybody kept telling me we're supposed to love ourselves. I thought what I learned was love everybody else. I had a lot of work to do to get this love flow back inside. So you can call them an affirmation, you can call them programming, but as we give our brains something to do, and remember, this is the part where I got ahead of myself. This is the part, the best way to do this work is when you are tapped in emotionally. There is so much energy in our emotions. Everything that we think and want is propelled by how we feel about it. So I may say to the universe, I want a new car. I want a new car. The universe is like, okay, well, not a lot of passion behind that. But if I want a new car, and I dream of this new car, and I visualize this new car, and I keep focusing on the new car, and I do the things, the steps I need to do in my 3D world to move forward towards that new car with excitement and joy, I'm going to see the new car. As we do our different dreams, whatever the dreams may be, a new car, a new career, a new love, healthy, free body, free from all the pains that you may be experiencing that are only a pain because of what we're thinking in our minds. As we move on in all of this, as I think all these things, I have to remember to do this with fun. I forgot about that sometimes. It's like I'm doing everything in my life right now to refocus only on my writing and get my writing out there. And I've noticed some of the addictive thoughts that come with it. And someone inside me said, hey, Mark, why don't you have fun with it? I got it so connected to success and worry and money and security center, that I'm like, whoa, I'm missing my own point here. I'm missing my own joy here. And it's like, just send it, just do it, just have fun with it, and let it go. And that's the part where we get plugged in sometimes. That letting it go of that outcome. We have, it's either the dead past or the imagined future. If you're gonna imagine a future, imagine a really nice one. I question myself sometimes, like, wow, you have imagined some really crappy futures. What are you doing that for? It's like, just breathe into these moments with yourself and imagine what it was. I've been walking lately and trying to get back and ready for this next surgery, and just a mellow one, herniated. So I have to get all core issues though. Core issues. I've always dropped the dime on every single thing that happens in our body is, so this is my core that I'm working on. But anyway, the point was, as I'm walking in life, I notice I do this. Now, these are trifocals. I had 20/20 vision a while ago. And I look at what we see in life, and as I'm walking, something says, hey Mark, you'll see everything on the ground if you put your head up. You'll still see, all you gotta do is go like that. Look at that. Wow, how that works. Wow. Wow, it's amazing. Because as I was walking, I started noticing that, because I had a good pace going on, but walking like this was hurting. And I'm going to be doing a talk about chakras soon, and I've been working on chakras, and I already know that when we stand up and down, the light just gets to go, so it's just like a kink in a hose. Just unkink the hose. And I was kinking it right here. And I wasn't walking like that, but it was a lesson about what's in front of us. And the future is always there, but all there is now. But sometimes when I'm looking, if I'm only looking down, I'm not going to see what's ahead of me. And that's when we bump into things. If I'm looking up, I'm not going to, oh, look at that. Oh, I walk around that. Oh, look at that. I think I've always been looking, because I found $50 on the ground one time, and I've just been looking down But, certain kids saying it's like the $50 isn't going to be on the ground. Either it's going to be your dreams, your passions, your career as a writer, that new love in your life, whatever it is you want. It's not going to be on the ground. But there is a time to get on the ground, and just get on the ground and sit and be. So conscious focusing helps us realize what our vision is and where we're looking. And if you notice you're looking at the ground, lift your head up. Wow, look at all the stuff in front of me. And it's great on your shins too when you look up, because you run into less things. It's about being in balance with all of this, being in balance with the 12 steps, the 7 centers of consciousness, the different methods they have, and all the things you already know, and all the different keys we're going to bring this year to get us into that higher consciousness from a place of experience, as opposed to a goal that I achieved because I wanted to be more conscious than other humans, so I could, I don't know, St. Peter will give me an extra brownie point when I get there. It's breathing into this is about experiencing. Now, as we experience this, if I may have the next slide, please. Living love with animals. These wonderful little creatures are going to give us every opportunity to let us know just exactly where we're coming from. Because as we look at animals, and I'm not necessarily talking about all the animals of the earth, even though I think it was, I just went blank on who said this, maybe Mark Twain, he says a lot of neat stuff. That man cannot find peace within himself until he is able to offer peace to every single creature he encounters in the world. And that means the cockroach too. Now there's no karmic impunity for killing a cockroach, but there's an ultimate reward when you let it live and you recognize that they're like cats. They clean themselves like cats, just so you know. Yeah. The more I've educated myself on the things that have scared me, the critters in life that have scared me, the more I've realized the wonder of them, and that if we want to be in that cosmic consciousness center, I have to own and realize I am the cockroach. I am every single thing that's ever been created. But when it comes to living love with animals, I'm talking more about our domestic animals. We're the stewards of them. They came here and evolved from wolves and whatever big cats to be here for us. It's a giveaway they do. It's a giveaway they do to help us in the human condition, because all they are is unconditional love. One of the things that we can do is consciously listen to how we talk to our pets. It's going to tell you where you're coming from. And most of the time, I know that I have judged humans for coming at their animals from the power center. Now, I didn't maybe know it was the power center, but it's like, if you love your animal, talk to your animal, listen to them. What do they have to tell you? I can tell you the difference between my cat's meows, and I've shared with you that sometimes it's gotten on me. And it's like, there's no accident in the way things happen, because I realized I was plugged into, he's missing staff, he's missing Rose, his brother died last year. He kind of like, whoa, where'd everybody go? And now you're gone all the time. So sometimes his meows were real needy. And as long as I took care of myself, the needy meow didn't get on me. If I wasn't taking care of me, then that needy meow got on me. But now, when I just look at him like he's just a 2-year-old, because that's really all they are ever gonna be mentally, toddlers, what is he saying? He's saying, love me, just love me. We do call them pets. Pet them, then. It's like, watch what happens to your being when you pet them. We think, how many times my cat has been whining to be petted? And I thought, okay, it was me. He was helping. He didn't need the love. He knew I needed to be in my heart chakra and to love him. It's like Suzanne Daly's our friend here, and we've been stuff, had sent me a message that her roommate saying, carry Jasper with you. I'm like, have you seen how big my cat is? He's 25 pounds. Wow. I'm like, man, why does he say that? I honor him. We're connected, never met the guy, but both of us are like saying things to each other here and there. So for 2 weeks, I'm like, man, so I'm letting him sit on my lap more. I'm like, oh my God, this is heavy. But it really made me present with my cat and realizing, hey, Mark, I know you're diverted. I know you got a lot of stuff going on, but here's a little 2-year-old that wants and needs your love. And Coyote's always in my life too, because 2 weeks later, Kimmy brought, here's something from Joel. Here's a piece of jasper. I'm like, oh, a crystal. That's a lot easier to carry. It's right in my pocket. No accidents, folks. Because I even texted, like, is there another meaning behind carry jasper? I've been telling people to carry crystals for years. He wants me to carry my cat? All right, man, whatever. So it's all good, and it works perfectly, because as I remember to live love with Jasper and with the animals in my life, my heart gets the reward. I'm the one who gets fulfilled. Remember, they're here to serve us, but we are the stewards for them. They totally give away of their whole lives just to serve us as people. Let them be a reflection to how you are. If you're yelling at your animals to go away, breathe. If they're not one of your kids, breathe. And just be aware, because they're going to love you no matter what. They will give you every opportunity to shift, and just watch. Watch how they shift their behavior when you shift your energy. It's like when we can shift the things that our animals do to preferences instead of addictions, they're going to show up a lot more the way we want them. And what we put into them, loving-wise, they're going to reflect back to us too. Sometimes, you ever seen your animals like whine for sound, and you're like, what the, and you're the one who's whining for sound? It's like that's some of the giveaway they do. They're all energetic beings. They don't have the intellect in a way to go, I think he's processing taxes. They don't know that. They just know, wow, he's like, they know our vibration. They see our colors. That's why some of the times when we're in the worst moods, they're all over us. They're like, I'm here to help you. Get off your stuff and let me help you. So sit down and pet me. It's about breathing and being in the awareness of what center of consciousness I am in with them. And if you're saying to yourself, well, I have to be the alpha, I'm going to tell you right now that you're in your power center, because all you have to be is loving. May I have the next page, please? Living love with children. They shall be a constant reflection of us. You know, when we are living with our children and not realizing that when we see those formative years between 0 and 5 are more formative by us than we realize, because they actually become what we create them to be in our head. If we think them to be an awkward kid and constantly have this picture of them, they're going to be an awkward kid. If you think them as an interference with your daily activities, then you will create that. And here is why. Because you're like, well, how can I be powerful enough to make my kid awkward? They are a reflection of what you are thinking them to be. And as they react to your programming, they begin programming themselves. So it's not like you're so powerful I can think you awkward. Wow. It's like I would like to think you rich instead. But what happens is they're reacting biocomputer-wise, and they start programming, they start programming, they start programming. If you keep saying things like, don't you ever listen, and try to dominate them with emotional demands, then we create the onset of their addictive demands and their addictive programming. You get to see your power addictions again with them, but as animals are only reacting on instinct to get the love back, kids are now developing their own security, sensation, and power addictions by virtue of how we're coming off at them. So this is real important again. If you think you're in control because I'm the father or I'm the mother, and we have been, that's back to folk ways. That was how we started this whole program with folk ways and these preconceived notions that have no real merit. Let's just have a society where we do these rules. They don't necessarily make sense. We know to believe in the children and to uplift them is really going to be the best future for us. The best now I can have is with a happy family. The best now I can have is if my child is open, having a wonderful imagination, and breathing in life fully. I talked to Rose recently. I'm like, hey, went through a lot of stuff last year. One mistake I made, well, a lot of them, I'm sure, but one of the things that we're allowed to do is own mistakes when we know it's a programming mistake. And I know I have had my security fears of money issues, especially last year, and some of that landed on her. And I noticed in a dialogue that she was sharing with me recently on the phone, on Skype or whatever, she was saying something about, well, if we have the money for that. I'm like, just breathe into it. I'm like, it'll work out. We'll be fine. Don't worry about it. It's all good. And sometimes forgive me for letting you see that worry part of me. We have to understand that there's an opportunity to be truthful with our kids. And if they see you in something, don't deny it, because then you're going to set up a lie in them and you're going to start programming them to that. But be aware with how you're doing it. If it was an on-purpose conversation, that's one thing. But getting caught or stuck in a worry or security sensations, pardon me, that's going to help program them. We get to see exactly where we're at. If I'm stuck in my security addiction, I'm going to be there with them all the time, worried about, I can't do that, we don't have money. If I'm stuck in power addiction with them, I'm going to be constantly saying stuff like, I told you to, you should be doing it this way, if you don't do it this way, and all the discipline and punishment that comes with it. And we already know better. We already know that there's more ways to be able to live love with children and to keep them into a growing, harmonious place. And one of the biggest ways to keep living love with kids is to, may I have the next page, keep the magic alive. We did a meditation this morning. It was just really inviting people to remember the magic, to see themselves in the child that they used to be, to see all the kids in their lives and see how wonderfully magical they are, and to know that our imaginations are filled with so much wonder. And it wasn't until we got into that intellectual part of us and we started worrying about life. It's like worrying just sucks the life out of us. It's like I want to always have my imagination. I always want to be able to tap into joy, silliness, and dorkiness. Whether I'm 100 or I'm 1, however many lifetimes I walk about on this round planet, or wherever in the universe that spirit takes me, I want to have the joy of this, because it's one of the essence, one of the things that rings clear throughout the universe. It's like this is a boundless thing. Whatever dimension you want to be in, whatever physical dimension, whatever non-physical dimension, all of it is inclusive of wonder. and innocence. You know, it's funny because in most of the depictions of God in that Theo-Christian based God the Father, we see this old man with a beard. What if it's just a big kid in diapers? Just playing with stuff, and like maybe the mountains were just mud puddles, and he was slapping his hands and drawing them up. He, she, all that is. The big kid in all of us. There's got to be a kid. Look at all the ridiculous looking creatures there are in the world. You're going to tell me there wasn't an imagination and the consciousness of all that is? And in that wonderful consciousness, there's not so much dorky, ridiculous humor everywhere. There's comedy everywhere in life. Look at the platypus. There's got to be an essence of wonder and childlike innocence that is the creation of all that is in the universe. And if we can keep that magic alive in ourselves and in our children, that's going to help them live that more harmonious life forever. That's going to help them achieve these different centers of consciousness, or experience them, from a place of joy without having to do all the debriefing that we are doing. Because our day and age, we didn't come up with this. But we can be models for people. We can show them a brand new way. We can teach our children that they can live in the here and now, keep that magic alive with them, and always have this purity, this essence, and know that their mind is still going to be right there for them. Matter of fact, it's actually going to work better, because I'll be able to consciously focus on the things I want. I'll be able to look and imagine the dreams that I have that I may share with you, or I can look at the dreams that you have and I can support you in focusing on your own dreams. So this entire series of shifting our addictions to preferences, understanding these 12 pathways and using them as a modality to help you reprogram your mind, to discipline your mind. Remember, the word disciple is, the etymology is from the word discipline. It's like, how that works there. So the 12 really strong thought followers of Jesus, it's like, think about that when we think about these words, that the disciple within me is the one who's got focus. And just translate those words, because it is the etymology of the word. And discipline doesn't mean somebody's going to smack me over the head with a book. It means that I have the ability to keep focusing on what I want. And that when I see myself out of these centers, I breathe, I find which center of consciousness I'm in, I lovingly let it go and know that I have everything, every minute I ever needed, even painful experiences, to help me realize and experience these different levels of consciousness. I really, really, really want to do a class on this. With this book comes a workbook. And I don't know what the price of the workbook, what the book is now, but I'm going to be researching this part for the next 2 weeks. For the next week, I mean, on the price of the book, the price of the workbook, and what kind of class we can come up with, because I believe that this is something that if you carry with you your whole life and add it to all the wonderful things that you already know, this can be a wonderful key to your kingdom. Thank you. At the very next slide.
On a boat with billowed sail, Jackie kept a lookout perched on Puff's giant